How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Rippion. How's it going today, James?
It's going well, man. I'm currently at a new location for my recording at home, tending some family matters. So I got a new recording studio behind me. I'm actually in my childhood room, so I kind of find that to be a little funny. But we're gonna have a great episode today. We got our buddy Jas Takhar here, and he's gonna fill us in a little bit about what he's got going on, his business, how he's just crushing it. So, why don't we just get started by jumping into it. And so, Jas, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and what you got going on?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. Entrepreneur here based out of Toronto, Canada. I got a couple of organizations that I run in the same location here, like right by downtown Toronto. One of them being a real estate organization, really helping buyers, sellers, and investors buy their first property. It might be like a first-time home buyer, sellers who are thinking about kind of smart sizing, moving up, moving down in terms of sizing of a property, and then kind of where like I like to spend most of my time with my clients is with creating wealth through real estate. Not that I think real estate is the only way, but I'm biased. I've been a real estate broker for coming up to 18 years. I've created some wealth with this vehicle, and I think it's quite easier than some others. Definitely, you got to put in the work. And then, so that's my real estate organization. I have a team of 56 real estate agents now that work on my team. I've been doing that for, as I mentioned, 18 years. And then in the last coming up to about 17 months, I produce anywhere from, I'm going to say, 10 to 12 pieces of either video, audio, or written word content on all the social platforms a day. And so I had a lot of real estate agents and kind of what I call the cousins in our industry, mortgage brokers / loan officers, asked me how I was doing it. And so the entrepreneur in me, I got slapped with the same question over and over again, which was, A, how do you do it? B, can you do it for us? And so I started a company with a business partner called From the Ground Up, which is really sales solutions for salespeople through education, courses, and programs, and then implementation, which is kind of our media service, where we actually like come up with the topics and create the video content for real estate agents and mortgage brokers.
So that's awesome, Jas. I'm super curious to talk to you about this because I think you're one of the fewer guests we have on that have a real estate brokerage team that they manage. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, what made you want to jump into managing a team? Because a lot of people when they get into real estate, the first thought that they have is maybe I should go get my license. Maybe that'll help me become a better investor. But few people take it the direction that you've gone, which is actually building the business in real estate, creating that team. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, James. I mean, I actually kind of got into real estate because of two reasons. Number one, I've been a sales guy my whole life, like from 12 years old, selling newspapers to selling shoes, not the Al Bundy type. And some of your older clientele might get that reference. I was actually helping sprinters and kind of marathon runners. And I always mention that because like the product knowledge that I picked up, like even 25 years later, I can tell you, depending on how you walk in your, like how your feet are shaped, what type of shoes you should be in. And then I went into the banking industry, car sales. And for me, that last, like, call it rung on the ladder of sales was real estate in terms of like someone's biggest purchase that they'll make in their life. At the same time, I just met somebody in my neighborhood who's like shoveling snow and cutting the grass of like 5 different properties on the street. Like, I was like, wow, is this the maintenance guy? Just kind of talked to him, and I came to learn that he owned these properties. And my father being a taxi driver his whole life, my mother being a factory worker her whole life, like no one educated them on how to own multiple properties. And so I just got talking with him. I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, so you just rent this out, at this time about 20, 21 years of age. And I said, okay, I'm going to get my license. I actually thought getting my license was all about learning how to invest into real estate. I quickly learned that it was about not getting sued, which is obviously important as a real estate broker, and not getting your clients sued, right? And so I was actually, I think, lucky because I went at it from both tacks. Like, okay, I'm going to be a broker. I'm going to help people because I think I got, a little bit of charisma. Sales is what I've done my whole life. But then I'm gonna invest into real estate. Over a 5-year period, I got a lot of deals done. I was helping a lot of clients because of all the other sales that I did, like just really having a network, staying in touch with them. Back in early 2004 to 2009, obviously there was really no social media, so it was done like old school, like picking up the phone, calling people, sending an email, calling people. And then I just started to again get asked by a lot of agents, like, how you doing it? They started to join my team, and one thing led to another. We got to 50 agents probably about 10 years in, and then we lost some because we made a lot of mistakes, overpromised and underdelivered. So I think you want to stay away from that as a business owner or a salesperson as much as you possibly can. And then this time we built it slowly and we did it the right way, which was bringing on the right people on our team, and then really taking more of a mentorship and accountability approach than trying to just give leads to people, which I know that's what salespeople and real estate agents want, but then you attract a certain person. Not to say that it's the wrong person in general, but it was definitely the wrong person for us. We wanted to be more culture oriented, from the ilk of that the pie's big enough that we can all eat, and having that abundance mentality versus the scarcity mentality. And our clients love it. And I've been lucky enough to say that the 56 agents that we have now, some of them have been with us for 15 years plus. And so I'd like to think that we're doing something right. But we make mistakes on a daily basis.
Man, I absolutely love that. And it to me, it feels like, you got in it for the right reasons to help people. And then over time, it kind of grew into this thing. And like you said, at the time you thought you were doing the right thing, but realized you kind of messed up here and there along the way. It helped you reset and then build the right foundation and slow it down and take the time to where you are today, which is all about entrepreneurship and building businesses. There's going to be setbacks, but those setbacks help you get further along, which is great. I really have to ask, this podcast is all about financial independence. It's all about the numbers. Like with 50 agents, I mean, what kind of business are you guys doing over the course of a year?
Well, so I mean, this year, at the time of this recording, we're sitting at December 2022. We'll end up with a little north of 700 families that we would have helped this year. On average, in the last 5 years, year over year, we're right hovering over that 625 to 600 families that we help every single year. Out of, call it just for giggles, on the average of 600, I personally probably do about 200, because I've set it up in a way that's not to impress your listeners or impress you two. It's more to really impress upon you where all the data's coming from. Like, why even have me on the podcast? You know what I mean? Like, where's all the actual data coming from? So that's why I mentioned those numbers. Those 200 out of the 600, I'm able to do like literally in a t-shirt or a hoodie. I mean, the guys and girls that are taking their dogs for a walk right now or on the treadmill who are listening to this podcast, they can't see it. But like, I'm here to tell you, man, like, you can design your business around your life. You like, I can hardly spell half the words I've said to you today. I don't have a computer. I haven't touched a laptop or a computer in, I don't know, 5-6 years. I very, very rarely leave the office. Like, I go home and I come here in the morning kind of thing. And I mention all that again, because like, if you're thinking that there's only one way to do this specific business, I'll probably venture to say, like any business, I think you're wrong. There's lots of different ways. Yes, definitely success leaves clues. So there's guys and gals ahead of us that have had a lot of success in certain ways. And so we can take some of that and learn from it, learn from some of their mistakes. But you can do it your own way. And that's so important for me to, really scream from the rooftops as much as possible, because I came from an area which is in the northern part of Toronto where, it was the area that where people were generally told, like, lock your doors and put up your windows when you're going through that area. Like, I shouldn't even be here right now talking to you guys. Like, I really shouldn't. I have I barely passed high school. And what I did find out, though, is that if you work your ass off and you get the right people around you, anything is truly impossible. And I know that might be a cliche, but I think it's a cliche because it's real and it actually works. But if you put your mind to something and get people around you that are smarter than you, it's all possible. Because there's times today I was in a meeting with kind of my 3-4 right-handed people, left foot, right foot kind of people on my team. And I was looking around at one point, I was like, holy shit, are these guys smarter than me? Like, I have no clue about that technology, but it didn't matter because I give them the autonomy to make a lot of mistakes. Because I'm always saying, and I think, you guys probably caught on to it earlier, like, I make mistakes every single day, all day long. And I'm trying to at least hit some grand slams along the way, because some of those mistakes could be covered up because of those grand slams.
Jas, I love that, man. And when Patrick asked you, to dig into the numbers, like, first and foremost, like, you can tell that you're approaching your business in a way of giving back and adding value, because you answered it by saying how many families you've been able to serve. And if, that's your baseline metric for building your business, like, that's going to carry you far way into it. And I love that. So, you had mentioned that you've built your business around the lifestyle that you wanted to live. What are some of the key fundamental principles that you might be able to share with our listeners for building a business generally? They might have some sort of contracting business, some sort of real estate business, whatever their business might be. What are some of those fundamental tips that you think might apply just generally to help them build a business? Because, a lot of people, when they get into this field, they're working for themselves, they're a solopreneur, and that's a totally different thing than being an entrepreneur. So you've bridged that gap. Like, what are some of those fundamental principles that you could share with us?
Yeah, like I'll tell you what our fundamental principles are here, and so somebody can take all of them. It's not ripping us off if we're telling you to take it. You know what I mean? There's enough to go around. I talked about the pies earlier. I talk a lot of food references. You can tell I like it. I like food. But here's kind of the 3 ways that we like to look at it. Number 1 is, it doesn't matter who you're speaking with. You got to treat everyone with respect. It's the old adage of, if you're speaking with somebody who's cleaning the toilets or it's the CEO, I can tell you sometimes somebody who's cleaning the toilets can help you a lot further. But also the CEOs can help you as well. So treating everyone with respect. As a real estate broker, like, what that really means to us is that sometimes we get asked to help a family with a $1,500 a month lease. And then you might get a phone call later on to help a family with a $1.5 million property. And sometimes what some people do is treat the $1.5 million buy with more respect than the $1,500 lease. And so for us, it's all the same. If you're at $1,500, you're going to get the same type of service that you are if it's $1.5 million. And some people like it, and some people are like, well, I deserve more because you're getting paid more. No, you're part of our system that where we're going to make sure that we do, which is number 2, which is exceed your expectations. So as a business owner, you want to try to exceed people's expectations as much as possible. Our metric for that, because it's not from a technological perspective that you can actually see when and how you're exceeding people's expectations, is how many wows do we get? So for example, for everybody who just heard James mention the fact that I use the word, how many families we help. I know now that, okay, that like, I've said it so many times, it does resonate with a lot of people, but some people don't mention anything. But I knew it resonated with you, so I'm going to continue to use it. For me, it's not, you didn't say wow, but it's something that stood out from our conversation. With our clients, we're looking for those opportunities where they say, oh, wow, you called us back quicker than everyone else. Oh, wow, you picked up the keys at closing. Oh, wow, you put on events. Oh, wow, so on and so forth. And then the number three principle we live by is to think long term, not only from the client's perspective, but also our business perspective. And why I emphasize our business perspective, because sometimes when you're thinking long term from the client's perspective, which is very important, some things you cannot execute on, unfortunately, because it will put you out of business. You got to keep the lights on. Let's not, like, we can't forget the number one rule in business. The number one rule in business is to stay in business. And you do that by making more money than you spend. And so sometimes when you're thinking long term from a client's perspective, it just doesn't make sense. And so you might need to let go of that client with respect, obviously. In today's day, so those are my three principles to answer your question, James. But I think, another tip that I would add that would change the course of anyone's not only business but life is to create consistent educational content. In 2023, if you're not out there doing what Patrick and James are doing, and you don't need to, have the good looks that these two have, but you guys, I knew something was going to land with Patrick, and that was the one that did. He talked about his looks, James, and that's it, brother? But
it's the hat.
It's the hat, I know. You have to, in my opinion, in 2023, be putting out educational content, because whatever you think in your business or the service you provide that is like you're the only person that knows it, I got news for you. There's a couple of sites. They're called Google and YouTube, that all the information that you think is sacred, that you think is and for the listeners, I'm doing air quotes, that are like insider trader secrets, it just doesn't exist. Anybody can get all the information. But if you're the one who's actually putting out the information consistently, you have a shot and you have a high probability that those people who are watching your content will get in touch with you. So the three guiding principles are treating everyone with respect, exceeding expectations, and thinking long-term for yourself and your business. However, in 2023, I'd like to add the caveat and get out there and produce content, because then you can get someone's awareness, and then you have a shot at selling them whatever product or service you have.
That's fantastic. And I know James and I both couldn't agree more with that. That's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, and we bring people on just like you, so we can help be, that educational content, that guiding light for people that can resonate with our values and the types of business and the types of things that we're doing, which is really fantastic. I do have to ask though, like, what are your goals, not only with your brokerage, but for your online content, kind of machine it sounds like you have going on?
Yeah, man. I got personally for myself right now, I have 3 videographers and editors. I have a content writer as well as a graphic designer, and that's just for like me personally. Then I have double that for our actual media company, that sales solution company that I mentioned for agents. But my goal is one thing, Patrick, is to get as much awareness as possible, i.e., hence why I'm on your podcast, in the hopes that one person listens and actually takes action. Because this notion that if you read a couple of books that knowledge is power is bullshit, because knowledge is just potential power. The actual use of the power, use of the knowledge is real power. So I'm hoping that one person takes action, but I'm also not going to lie. And I'm going to pull back the curtains. The other reason is if these two boys are kind enough and they give me the recording of this, my team is going to chop up this piece of content 18 different ways, i.e. 4 or 5 videos, take out the audio, give me some audio overlays. I'm sure I said 1 or 2 things that were quotable on some type of image, and then they can write a long blog. And so rather than me doing this talk for 15 different people to get those 15 pieces of content, I could do it once and let my machine do the work, which will inevitably get me in front of more people's faces. And then I have, like I mentioned earlier, I have that shot at possibly them doing what I call the digital deep dive and saying, okay, this crazy looking Indian guy who moves his hands a lot and talks with a lot of energy. I like him. I want to get to know more about him. Or what happens 98% of the time with the 8 billion people that I haven't got to yet, or that have seen me, they're like, this guy's on crack. I want to stay away from him. There's no way I'm going to do business. Well, that's fantastic because they're not going to waste their time. They're not going to waste my time. But as a business owner slash salesperson, if someone walks into my office, I know there's probably a 98% chance that they have seen my content and they still came to the office. Okay, I got a little bit of leverage. And I don't mean that from a negative perspective. It's like you saw the content, you still decided to come here. That doesn't mean you're going to buy everything that I have, but at least you want to get to know more. And as I mentioned, it kind of, it comes all full circle. I've been doing sales my whole life, and I've been kind of winging it from the perspective of, let me just get to know people. If they like me, great. If not, who cares? But now that I have content, it's the tool that was missing in my life. And I jumped onto this 3.5 years ago consistently. Nothing has given me more authority and actual dollars, because I know people like that, like the actual monetization, than content. Like nothing. And I'm a phone call person. Like I'll pick up the phone and ask for anything. Like I'm not scared. But wow, is content doing the work for me, because people are in their pajamas at 3 o'clock in the morning having a glass of wine and watching these podcasts, man. They're watching quick little 37-second TikTok videos. And for somebody who's thinking TikTok's all about dancing and little kid stuff, like you just haven't caught on yet. Like you got to understand it's aged up. Like we got, 45, 55-year-old people who are kind of creeping on their kids and their nephews and nieces. But while they're doing that, there's a chance that they might see your video educating them on the process of investing into real estate.
Well, and I found that with social media too. It's all about, planting seeds everywhere, and the number of touches you get. I've noticed this on people that I follow too. You'll be scrolling through and you'll see somebody once. Oh, that was interesting. You'll see them twice or 3 times, and you're like, wow, okay, there goes the follow. And now you're hooked, and like you're seeing what kind of value they're putting out there that you can get from them. So 100%. With all that in mind, though, what obstacles are you seeing in your path to developing this sales program or your brokerage?
Yeah, I think right now at the time of this recording, the elephant in the room is just the shift in the market, right? Both my organizations are tied to the real estate market, and so when people are fearful like they are now because of the increase in interest rates, and I'm not here to say like they shouldn't be. I just don't think that they should be as much as they are, if that makes sense, if I articulated myself there. What I'm really trying to say is that there's a lot of money that can be made in recessions, like actually from a real estate investing perspective, as well as a real estate agent here in the greater Toronto area, which is a 50-mile radius. There's 76,000 real estate agents. So if you throw a stone, you'll hit one, but come end of January, everyone gets hit with their yearly invoice. That's going to go from 76,000 to 60,000, right? Yes, there's not going to be as many sales as they were in the past, a couple of years for sure, but you can actually get market share right now because not everybody is producing content, making phone calls, and doing educational events, which I think are the 3 pillars in this business that you have to do. And so the challenge is that people are fearful. They're not spending as much money, right? Again, for good reason, right? They're fearful. They're not sure where this is going to be heading. And so I completely understand it. And because of both of my businesses being tied to that, I have to be smart and say, okay, let's not maybe the expansion model that we had, let's not put it on steroids as much as we wanted to. But I can tell you, by nature, I'm not a defense kind of guy. Like I'm a massive sports guy, and all my sports teams that I've been following, and I'm not a bandwagon guy, I've been following the same teams in the same sports for years and years and years. I've dealt with all of the losses. And if anyone knows the Dallas Cowboys, that's my team since 1992. I've dealt with a lot of losses in my life when it comes to that team. And what the reason I bring that up is because I've always been an offense guy. Go on offense, go on offense. You got to play some defense, but the offense is what's going to win. And so I'm just not in super expansion mode right now, but I'm definitely in expansion mode still, because even from a team perspective, agents and staff members for both my organizations, they're coming up on the market, meaning like there's layoffs happening. So some good people are being let go, and that's an opportunity. Is that something that like could change the game? I don't know. Maybe I might just get the right person at the right time that changes the game. There's opportunities from the investing perspective, as I mentioned. Values have gone down. Like investors, and that's first and foremost. Other than being a business owner, like I'm an investor. Even before I'm a real estate broker, I look at it everything from an investment perspective. Like real estate just went on sale, and we would run when, I don't know, a shoe store had 10% off. People take off like 2 hours off of work to get to that. Some places, real estate's 90 cents on the dollar, 85 cents on the dollar. And because there's people who are fearful, I'm looking to be a little greedy to take, Warren Buffett's best line, be greedy when people are fearful and be fearful when people are being greedy.
Exactly. Man, I love it. All right. Well, this is a perfect segue into our last segment of the show that James and I like to call the Big Four.
Big Four.
James,
So
get away.
Jas, this will be our first one. Tell us something that you do that feels like a financial independence hack, something that just seems like a cheat code.
I mentioned content earlier because that definitely is. So I'll stay away from that. I actually think one of the biggest cheat codes from a financial independence perspective is hiring, building a team. Not enough people do it.
That's one thing right now that I'm struggling with, and I'm going to take that to heart. That's great. All right. Number 2, we call this one resources. So any specific books, podcasts, or people that have influenced you, your business journey, your financial independence journey that you think our listeners would benefit from?
Yeah, from what your listeners would benefit from. There's so many, man. So I'm gonna forget a lot, obviously. But let me give you a few so then people can kind of see who they resonate with. One of my favorite books of all time, very easy read, and then I'll give you a little one that's maybe a little tougher but very known. Is a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. He's a gentleman who wrote, which most people would know, Chicken Soup for the Soul. But he put a book together that is like 68, 69, 70 principles that just helped me, man, because it was really in layman's terms, and I needed it written that way. Great book, 68 to 70 principles. I think the best book in general of all time is 7 Habits by Highly Effective People by the late, great Dr. Stephen Covey. Again, a little bit tougher read maybe for some. For me, it was, but I told you why, because I had a tough time in school, but I love that book. Podcast, I'm a big podcast listener. I would right now, I'm on like a Lex Friedman tip right now.
Me too.
I mean, his one of his most recent ones was with Chamath, who's like he was number 6 or number 7 on Facebook, but he's also a Canadian. He's a Canadian guy as well, so it kind of resonated. Him being Indian as well, that probably helped it resonate with me. But listen to that 2.5-hour podcast. I would never have started content if it wasn't for Gary Vee. That is someone that I owe a lot to. I was lucky enough to have him on my podcast not too long ago, well, probably about 2-3 years ago. And we had a quick little chat, which was kind of cool. Off air podcast was like 35-40 minutes, but him and I had a quick chat. Patrick Bet-David, another guy that was on my podcast, I think is one of the most underestimated, if that makes sense. He's one of the most underestimated entrepreneurs. Watch for him in the next 2 to 3 years. He's gonna blow up.
I love him.
Yeah, you're on him, Patrick. Awesome.
Oh, of course, Valuetainment, baby. Valuetainment.
100%. Patrick Bet-David. And I said Lex Friedman. And then obviously, if you're a podcaster, you might not like all his episodes because he goes all over the place, but you got to give the respect to the podfather himself, which is Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
And so you gotta give that guy some love because I think he has an ability to ask deep questions that as a fellow podcaster, I'm trying to find my way, even though I've been doing it for a while, but I can always learn, and he's one of the best at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Man, you knocked it out of the park.
Joe Rogan, he's so approachable too. He's never trying to be smarter than he is, and I think that's what makes his content so likable. And couldn't agree more. So
yeah, he doesn't really give a shit what anybody else thinks about him, and I think that really is like the you asked for a financial kind of hack earlier, James, but like I think that's actually the hack in life. Like once you stop caring about what other people think, because to me, you just end up realizing that nobody was ever really thinking about you because everybody's thinking about themselves all the time. Then you can start to really open up and let people come into your world, and then you realize who you want on your team, and then that starts to take a life of its own.
Perfect. So, Jas, this is our third question. We call this one the future you. Future you. It's 5 years in the future. Why don't you tell us kind of where you are at with your business or with your personal life?
Yeah, I think for me, I got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, so they'll be 14 and 12 at that age. Funniest thing, like you guys couldn't have caught me. The reason I was slightly late for our conversation because my team just let me know that at the front their business cards came in, and business cards for my 9-year-old and 7-year-old for some idea that they had. Like it's just something that they want to try, and it was so cool that they wanted to do this because dad could help with that. Because when they ask dad to cook something, not me, you know what I mean? If they say, even as a dad, if they ask to put up these shelves and drill something, I can't help them. It's not a skill set that I have. Like I'm still very insecure around that kind of stuff. I suck at it. I can't hang up a picture. But Dad can help with designing some business cards. He knows where to go. Dad can help with maybe some ideas on how to get some customers. I can kind of help with that. And so I say that because you mentioned personal, James. I hope my kids are doing more of what they like in 5 years, just whatever it might be, this business thing that they're thinking about. It could be the silliest thing and they never touch it again. And then they become painters and one becomes, I don't know, he has a love for playing the piano or something. Whatever it is, I hope in 5 years, they're doing more of what they like. For me, which crosses over from a business to professional, like personal, sorry, I apologize, is I've always wanted to speak to salespeople at a stage of 20 to 30,000, which is it's actually 20,000 to be exact, which is our main stadium here, which houses the Toronto Raptors and the Toronto Leafs downtown here at the Scotiabank Center. I want to be on a stage where there's 20,000 people, all eyes on me, and me giving them my energy and everything I know about sales. And so in 5 years, I think I will hopefully be at a place where I'm doing that 4 to 5 times. And then in the 10-year mark is when I hit a place like Wembley where there's a seating for 90,000. That is the dream. Let's see where it goes.
Fantastic. Freaking fantastic. I love those big, audacious, hairy goals, which you have, and they're all about helping people, bringing awareness and bringing value to others, which I think that those are the pillars right now that are ultimately going to help everyone succeed. It's focusing outward instead of inward. And by doing that and by helping others, you're going to far exceed the goals that you plant for yourself. So this has been an amazing podcast. And I've got to ask, where can people reach out and find you if they feel like you have helped educate, motivate, and inspire them to reach out and go after their goals?
Look, man, and I hope your viewers and listeners realize like there was not a questionnaire sent to me by Patrick or James. Like everything was just like kind of off the cuff. And so I mentioned that because you used your last word that you used was inspire. And I came out with an app on my phone, like people that you can download it for free. There's no cost for it in the App Store and the Play Store. It's all where all my content, like my video content, sits. The conversations with the Gary V's, Robert Kiyosaki's, the Patrick Bet-Davids. The list goes on and on. I've had some really cool people. Those are the big names, and I guess I was going to say I'm not trying to name drop, but I name drops. So I was that guy. But there's some also conversations that I had with people that nobody would ever know. It's just documenting their journey, maybe buying their first investment property and then sharing how scared they were and how they were shaking when they were signing the checks. And I think those actually have more downloads and listens and views than all the other big names that I mentioned. And so the tagline to this app, which is just my name. I couldn't get creative that day. So it's first name, last name, that you can just download in the App Store and the Play Store. But the tagline is to get inspired. Look, I think motivation is important, but I've noticed that people get motivated on a Wednesday morning, and then Wednesday afternoon life happens, and I get why. Because they're not inspired. They're not being told to something that would keep them up late at night and get them up early in the morning. And I know this might sound weird, where I tell people that I always wanted to make $100,000 in a year, and I've made that in a day. And then again, I'm not trying to tell you to impress you by any means, but the money's just not going to make you happy. And that's where I'm at in my life. Like, I can make more money, and it's fun. It's a scoreboard that I use because that's what we do in business. But it's actually like, I wish I could go back to that same kid that just wanted to make 100,000. I've never been happier in my life from a financial perspective. But if you want more out of your life, like Patrick said, you need to find ways to bring people more of what they want in their life, because that is true wealth. Money will follow where the passion is. Not if you try to chase money, you're not going to make it. You got to find what you'll do all day, all night, because you're going to work harder at it. You're going to bring more value to the marketplace, and your income is determined by how much value you bring to the marketplace. So why not find what you're going to do all day, all night, bring more value, because then you'll get paid more.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, you know the drill. If you liked this episode, if you hated this episode, leave us a review. Do something. All we're doing is we're working for your reviews, whether they're good or bad. So get out there, Google, Spotify, YouTube, subscribe, leave us a comment, do something, and we'll catch you next time. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.